From the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX, this is Revealed. I'm Al Ledson. Today, we're looking at guns in America through data and statistics. Police departments across the country are looking for ways to curb gun violence. Typically, police first learn about a shooting from a 911 call. In many cases, the caller doesn't know exactly what happened.
And the car that's parked in front of 1901 Blue has glass all over it.
Did he shoot the vehicle?
I don't know. I didn't see that part. I saw him go back into the property with a gun.
Okay, and where's this guy now?
Still in the property, I believe.
In this case, San Francisco police arrived before the woman could even finish the call.
Yeah, I'm talking to a police captain right now, so I need to talk to you too.
Speaking with the police?
I have a police captain in front of me, yeah.
Police found out about the shooting because of something called Shotspotter. It's a gunshot detection technology that's supposed to help law enforcement reduce gun crime. Shotspotter is used in about 90 cities across the country. It's even installed in schools, and it's costing taxpayers millions of dollars each year. We wanted to know what the police and the public are getting in return. Reveals Matt Drange brings us this story.
The way it works is simple. A series of sensors, think big, sensitive microphones, are installed around a city. Rooftops, street lamps, the higher up the better. The sensors are always on, always listening. Here's what a ShotSpotter alert sounds like. When 3 or more sensors detect possible gunshots, ShotSpotter plots them on a map and notifies police dispatchers. The way San Francisco officials talk about it, you'd think the technology has revolutionized their approach to fighting gun crime.
ShotSpotter has helped us because we know that we have forensic evidence that we can rely upon in proving that a shooting did or did not take place.
That's San Francisco's Assistant District Attorney, Diana Garcia. She's speaking in a promotional video ShotSpotter produced a couple years ago. Garcia was joined by an official from the mayor's office and San Francisco Police Chief Greg Sir.
They say number one thing that reduces crime, the fear of being caught. Well, we're catching the bad guys.
San Francisco first installed the technology back in 2008. Since then, police have expanded the system to cover 13 square miles, costing taxpayers more than $2.6 million. To hear ShotSpotter in action, I went on a ride-along with police in the Bayview neighborhood. The community has struggled to combat gun violence for years and was the first to get the technology. I hopped in the back of a squad car on a recent Friday night. It didn't take long for the first ShotSpotter alert to come crackling over the radio. We zoomed through the streets of San Francisco, blowing through intersections. The officers hunt for the quickest route to the scene.
So right. Towards Indian? Yeah.
In about 2 minutes, we get to where ShotSpotter pinpointed the gunfire, but we don't find anything. The officers ask bystanders for clues.
Hey, Moss, is there anything like a gunshot? Do you hear any gunshots at all? Any cars flying out of here?
No, one man says. I just got here.
Okay.
At this point, it's clear that we're in the wrong place. The shooting happened half a mile away, where other officers responding to 911 calls are already interviewing witnesses and collecting shell casings. We clear out.
ShotSpotter 1407 Caesar having found.
Calls like this one are not unusual. ShotSpotter gives the wrong location up to 20% of the time. It's especially a problem near big hills and downtown areas with tall buildings. Even when the technology does give police an accurate starting point, they often come up empty-handed. We dug into every ShotSpotter alert police responded to in San Francisco over a 2.5-year period, beginning in January 2013. That's more than 3,000 calls altogether. In nearly 2/3 of the calls, police couldn't locate evidence of gunshots. And in those 2.5 years of data that we sifted through, police made just 2 arrests. One of the arrests that came from a ShotSpotter notification had nothing to do with guns. When officers responded to an alert in August 2014, they didn't find a shooter. They didn't find shell casings either, or witnesses. What they found was a drunk man with an outstanding warrant. His arrest was attributed to ShotSpotter in police records. So what about the other arrest, the one that involved a gun? Let's go back to the shooting you heard at the beginning of the story.
I have a police captain in front of me, yeah.
Go ahead and speak to the police.
Okay, so, around the corner here at 1901.
Yeah.
San Francisco Police Commander Rob O'Sullivan responded to the scene that morning and interviewed the 911 caller. ShotSpotter alerted him to the location before it went out over the police radio. As O'Sullivan walked across the street, he found shattered glass surrounding a green minivan riddled with bullet holes.
And just as I made the corner, I looked down the street and I saw a gentleman he was actually sitting on the sidewalk, and he matched the description. It was all dark clothing.
There was the shooter, a man named Marlon Fajardo. Rather than run away, he sat on the sidewalk in front of his house. He lives next door to the neighbor whose car he admitted to shooting up.
More often than not, somebody that fires a gun isn't going to stick around, just to see what happens. More often than not, they're in a car, they're on foot, and they're running or they're driving away.
Do you think the outcome would have been different had Shotspotter not been installed in this case?
That's hard to say. In this case, the suspect sat down on the sidewalk, so he made the decision not to leave.
This was an easy case for police. It was also an exceptional one. Fajardo wasn't caught because of Shotspotter. He was arrested because he stayed at the scene of the crime.
Our expectation isn't that every time there's a ShotSpotter alert that someone will dispatch that particular scene and actually capture a criminal with a gun in their hand, although that has happened.
That's Ralph Clark, the president and CEO of ShotSpotter. He says rather than catch a shooter when responding to ShotSpotter alerts, police are more likely to find gunshot victims. And we found a handful of cases where that has happened. Ralph lives in an affluent neighborhood of Oakland. He keeps a ShotSpotter sensor on the roof of his home, but it almost never goes off. And the rare times it does detect gunfire, Ralph says police are likely to get multiple 911 calls. But that's not always what happens. In some neighborhoods, where gun violence is more common, less than 20% of suspected gunfire is reported to police.
That means 80 to 90% of the time people don't call 911. That's a problem. That's a problem that we fundamentally fixed.
Ralph says ShotSpotter can also play a role in helping police collect evidence that prosecutors can use to get convictions.
It enables cops to get the dots, get out of their car. They're oftentimes recovering shell casings, which then can lead to downstream cases being made.
Here's the catch. That rarely happens, either in San Francisco or other cities with ShotSpotter. The San Francisco DA's office was unable to find any convictions where the technology played a major role. At first, they couldn't point us to any cases at all. After weeks of back and forth, a spokesman for the office found a handful of cases where ShotSpotter played a part. But many of the cases were older, and the technology only played a minor role. So I went back to San Francisco Police Chief Greg Suhr. I asked him to explain why he continues to tout ShotSpotter, despite the fact that it rarely puts police in a position to catch the bad guys.
Well, anecdotally, we put ShotSpotter where we believed and or knew where we were having disproportionate gun violence. I can't give you a concrete example, but I know it's a nice technology to have.
The chief struggles to come up with specific cases involving ShotSpotter. He's quick to point out that in the 5 years since he took over the department, most gun crime is down. That's true. In big cities across the country, gun crime is down. But it's the same in cities that have never tried ShotSpotter.
And so I'm just trying to make sense of you have this technology, it's in place in more than 90 cities, right? San Francisco is one of them. But what concrete are we as a public sort of getting in return for that?
20 less homicides a year and 50% less shootings for the overall strategy that we employ that includes technology that ShotSpotter is part of.
Right, that ShotSpotter is a part of. So that's what I'm trying to separate from this thing, is what can you actually point to ShotSpotter and say, yes, that helped us with X or Y or Z? Because so far it's the evidence just isn't really there.
We have an overall strategy, technology is part of it, we have 20 less homicides a year.
That's as far as the chief will go. Even though there's no concrete link between ShotSpotter and the general decrease in violent crime, he believes having the technology is worth the cost. While San Francisco is sticking with ShotSpotter, others are bailing out. At least 5 cities have let their contracts with ShotSpotter run out. In Charlotte, North Carolina, police plan to use the money they saved to install more surveillance cameras, a technology that's proven successful. Major Steve Willis of the Charlotte Police Department said ShotSpotter simply wasn't helping them fight gun crime.
So once we started looking at it, yes, we were seeing positives in the fact that we were getting more calls created for gunfire. However, we were having a hard time being able to show that data that we had actually arrested individuals who were responsible for the gunfire in which the calls were generated for.
Charlotte wasn't alone. The city of Quincy, Washington also abandoned the technology. I went to Quincy and spoke to their mayor, Jim Hemberry, about that decision.
My expectation was we'd have this map and we'd be able to say, wow, we don't have gunfire incidents over here. We don't have them here, but boy, we have a lot of them here. So now we can concentrate on patrolling that area more rigorously. And that, for whatever reason, never came to fruition.
Quincy is a rural farming community about 3 hours east of Seattle. It's the smallest town in the country to install ShotSpotter. A few years ago, Mayor Hemberry and his police chief thought the technology could help them tackle a flare-up of gang violence. And it did. Once. ShotSpotter helped police investigate what they call their own OK Corral shooting. It happened down the street from the police station. One night, a half-dozen rival gang members got into a shootout. Police used ShotSpotter to figure out which side fired first, allowing them to recreate what happened. But that one success wasn't enough. Quincy decided to ditch the technology in late 2013, less than a year and a half after they rolled it out.
Ultimately it came down to a decision of, do you want to keep this system, or do you want to hire another police officer? And from the public's perspective, they would much rather have boots on the ground than this acoustical system.
The problem in Quincy and other cities that abandoned ShotSpotter isn't that the technology doesn't work. Most of the time, it does. The problem is there's little evidence that the technology is helping law enforcement reduce gun crime, even in cities that are renewing their contracts. We collected dispatch records, ShotSpotter alert data, and thousands of pages of police records from more than 24 cities around the country. A clear pattern emerged. Lots of calls, but few results. In Milwaukee and Kansas City, for example, police spent thousands of hours responding to ShotSpotter alerts, yet they made arrests only about 1% of the time. ShotSpotter claims its data has been accepted by courts as evidence in 17 states. But when I spoke with prosecutors around the country, they told me ShotSpotter usually plays a minor role in closing cases. At this point, you might be thinking, how does ShotSpotter continue selling its technology with so few tangible results? A lot of it has to do with effective marketing.
It's time to fight back with a proven force multiplier that's operationally effective and cost-effective. It's time to fight back with ShotSpotter.
The company produces sophisticated promotional videos, like the one that included the San Francisco police chief. The ads feature confidence-inspiring phrases and promise results, such as better community relations and enhanced situational awareness.
ShotSpotter, the critical first step in stopping gun violence.
But those results are hard to measure. I asked ShotSpotter CEO Ralph Clark to explain the technology's value. He wasn't armed with hard numbers or specific cases. Instead, he spoke more generally about ShotSpotter's role in violent neighborhoods, where sensors detect gunfire daily.
What we're about is, in our highest and best use, we say of our system, is to provide a higher level of service to underserved communities around the issues of gun violence. Show up, be present, get at it, knock on doors, ask if people are okay. That's huge.
Another reason for ShotSpotter's dominance. The company controls its image by preventing data from being released to the public. This includes even basic information about when and where gunshots are fired.
We own the data, and we license the data on an annual subscription basis to the agency.
Most police departments that use ShotSpotter lease the equipment. This saves cities money, but it also means that police don't own the data. ShotSpotter does. When we requested basic information to map gunfire in cities, ShotSpotter fired back. The company sent out a nationwide memo to customers, claiming the data was exempt from public records laws. They argued it was a trade secret.
From an independent journalistic standpoint, it makes it very hard to sort of measure or quantify effectiveness when you can't get the data. And some cities have taken that position with their state law.
Yeah, hey, bad for you. Really sorry about that. Good for the overall system, because now we can charge an affordable price to agencies that we otherwise wouldn't do. Because if we didn't have the big data play, we'd be charging a very different price.
The big data play Clark is talking about is a gamble ShotSpotter is betting on big time. The idea is to convince the FBI or ATF to buy its data wholesale. Clark worries that if cities release the information, ShotSpotter won't be able to sell it later. The vast majority of ShotSpotter customers have never analyzed their data to find out if the technology is helping them reduce gun crime. Instead, police departments rely on the company to tell them how they're doing. This works out well for ShotSpotter. San Francisco's contract is up at the end of the year. Chief Sir doesn't hesitate when I ask if he plans to renew it.
You could imagine what someone might say if all of a sudden, because of money, you stop doing something. This is San Francisco, right? We're the technology hub of the world. So for us to not have the best technology available, especially when it comes to keeping people safe, would be irresponsible of us to do.
And it's not just San Francisco. Most cities are renewing their contracts, and new ones continue to sign up. ShotSpotter dominates this market all by itself, having bought out the competition years ago.
Our story was produced by Matt Drange, with reporting from Ali Winston. At its current pace, ShotSpotter will have sensors in more than 100 cities before the end of the year.